What up, y'all? State Almighty, aka the Global Dark Skin Ambassador. We're going to be reacting to the rise and fall of Bronx Drill. I'm reacting to a video from the channel New School Stories. So go ahead and subscribe to New School Stories. But without further ado, let's get to it, yo.
What drill rapping was, but I called my son and he sent me some videos and it is alarming.
The shenanigans of Chirac, Jacksonville, okay, all these other places, Philadelphia, all that. Listen, man, that's not New York City. New York City's a whole different beast.
Over the course of 3.5 years, they carried out at least 32 violent crimes.
It was beefs and slights and disrespects that all drove some of these incidents.
That was done, investigators say, through drill rap videos.
And you'll never, ever get long-standing crime or people who are repping gangs who are going to be dominating the scene in New York and also dominating the music scene as well. Okay, that's just the reality of things.
They call people out directly.
Because they're going to go to jail.
Incidents, individuals that have perished prior to gunfire, opposing gang members.
But they have to realize New York is not the place. New York will not be the home of where y'all think y'all could just act recklessly in the street and then make songs about it, taunting your enemies. Never will happen. And this is going to be the consequence every single time.
Over the past 2 years, the Bronx drill movement has caught the attention of the whole world. Kids who were 9 and 10 when Chief Keef first blew have grown up and finally gotten their turn to put a spotlight on the craziness that's been going on in their borough for decades. Stars have skyrocketed up in the movement and fallen just as quickly. Diss songs have been released that are so wild, they make King Von's most disrespectful songs sound like YouTuber diss tracks. Teenagers have lost their lives and been mocked relentlessly by their ops, to the point where it seems like anything goes. The mayor of New York City even considered banning the genre as a whole, and everything has been broadcasted for tens of millions of people across the world to tune into. So today, let's take a look at the rise of Bronx Drill. South Bronx is the home of Bronx Drill, and this has been a rough place since the 70s when the borough had an outbreak of fires and 97% of its buildings ended up burning. During this time, the tough, impoverished conditions...
Fun fact about the Bronx: it's been a lovable yet dirty and very dangerous place for quite some time, since at least the 70s.
That the Bronx found themselves in ended up being expressed in the creation of hip-hop. Time went on and the fires stopped, but the poverty continued and the Bronx remained the poorest borough in the entire city. Gangs were always present, and in the 70s and 80s, Italian mobs controlled large parts of the South Bronx, but in the 90s, the black and brown gangs began to take over. As time went on, these gangs caught indictments and lost their structure, so by the early 2000s, these organizations had devolved into teenagers chasing each other around with straps. Fast forward 20 years, and the Bronx found itself in the same situation. The only difference was a huge opportunity was about to present itself to allow some of these kids to monetize this pain and misery. 2020 was the year Pop Smoke lost his life, causing the Brooklyn drill movement to fade out. It looked like New York's run was over, but another drill movement was actually in its infant stages. In the Bronx, some of the movement's early pioneers were just getting started. Rappers like Dthanggz, T-Dot, Shy K, and Spaz Drilly had been rapping since 2019, but despite living in New York, none of them were rapping on Brooklyn drill beats.
Shout out Shy K from the motherland.
But in 2020, they all started to turn towards the Brooklyn drill sound. This same year, rappers like K-Flock, B-Love, Dougie B, and E-Dot Baby were also beginning their careers rapping on Brooklyn drill beats as well. Like every drill movement, there were different
shout out B-Love from the motherland
gangs that each rapper was representing. K-Flock repped a gang called DOA, aka Southside. Dthanggz repped a gang called YGs, aka G's. Shy K repped a gang called OGs. E-Dot Baby repped a gang called OY, aka Sugar Hill. And Spaz Drilly repped a gang called the Drillies. Around this time, it was basically all the gangs against the YGs and the Drillies. And rappers from these rival gangs went back and forth on tracks, just like others before them in Brooklyn and Chicago. Nobody blew up immediately out the gate, but earlier in the year, T-Dot and Dthanggz saw success with tracks like RPT Buggin' Part 1 and 2, Shy K had Shooter Get Shot, Spaz Drilly had Bunny Hop, and E-Dot Baby had Ready for War. B-Love also saw early success with this song Through the Coat, and later in the year, K-Flock would join him, and they would do numbers on songs like Op Spotter and Speed Racing. Like all the past movements, this were tossed back and forth, but from the beginning, Dthanggz and Shy K had the biggest rivalry between any of the Bronx pioneers. They had a strong hate for each other and were basically competing to see who could be the most disrespectful. They dissed each other by name and said they were smoking on each other's dead homies on a regular basis. And as time went on, things only got worse. All drill music is aggressive, but rappers like K-Flock and Shy K were bringing a level of aggression rarely seen before. And this aggression would become more and more popular and a distinguishing part of Bronx drill as it progressed, with some even taking it so far that they started doing impressions of Batman. Another trend that was spread across Bronx drill was switching up the vibe of the beats. Dthanggz and T-Dot were rapping on beats with the same style of drums as those from Brooklyn, but more happy-sounding melodies, different from the dark, ominous sound of Brooklyn drill. And this would also form into a staple of Bronx drill. Toward the end of 2020, the Bronx drill scene was picking up steam and appeared to be on the edge of blowing up. 2021 was the year it reached the mainstream. In March, K-Flock, B-Love, and Dougie B dropped Brotherly Love and hit 1 million views in a month. It was clear that they had the potential to really take off. Everybody was going up, but K-Flock was separating himself from the pack. He was mainly doing songs with his friends, but he was clearly the star, and fans wanted to see him do more solo records. Around this time, the Bronx drill scene was also getting crazier and crazier. Basically, all of the gangs were turning EBK. In 2020, K-Flock, Dougie B, and Shy K were on good terms, doing songs together and shouting each other out. But something happened, and by the middle of 2021, DOA had fell out with the OY and OG's gangs, and members were adding K's to each other's sets, as well as dissing each other's dead members. B-Love was OG's, but had lived in DOA territory and was good friends with K and Dougie, but still cool with Shy K, and he managed to stay neutral, but Shy would end up going at it with Dougie and K. Despite falling out with DOA, Shy K continued to put out bangers throughout 2021 and dissed the YGs repeatedly on songs like D&D and One in the Head. D&D ended up blowing up on TikTok and giving Shy K a big boost. Shy K was one of the more disrespectful drill rappers, but even his level of dissing was nothing compared to where other rappers were starting to take it. Over on the Drilly side, Spaz Drilly, who was the former...
I will second that notion, though. Shy K is extremely disrespectful. He's yelling the whole entire time on every song. And he's violating everyone you know, whoever died, including your mama. And it's very entertaining. It's very entertaining, not gonna lie.
...to the Drillies had gotten locked up in 2020. Lee Drilly decided that it was up to him to take Spaz Drilly's place and pick up where he left off. So in February of 2021, he dropped a song called Final Destination with over 40 disses and shots at basically all the rappers from the hoods he was beefing with, as well as their dead members. And this would set the trend of the Drillies and the YGs being the two most disrespectful hoods. Obviously, with all these shots being thrown at them, the other gang...
I'm gonna be real with you. Dthanggz is a disrespectful little nigga. That nigga is extremely disrespectful. I believe it was him who posted a picture of some bloody uptowns and said, "These the Noahs." Very fucking disrespectful.
Had to respond with similar levels of disrespect. One of the most disrespectful rappers to emerge from DOA was a rapper called Nas EBK. He came out dissing rivals and smoking their dead basically every song and saw a lot of success on records like Bunny in the Box and OYK. Alongside him, another big DOA rapper named Set the Trend was also doing his thing. In June, another rapper heavy on the dissing also started his career. Use G's dropped his first song, Warzone, dissing 6 Dead Ops and all the poppin' rappers he had beef with, and the track took off. Use G's was a rising star for the YGs, But Dthanggz was still leading the movement, dropping consistent bangers as well as consistently dissing his ops. Throughout early 2021, Dthanggz was starting to take off and growing at around the same pace as his cousin K Flock. The main rapper he was dissing was Shy K, but on one particular song, he decided to throw a shot at B-Love, and B-Love ended up responding with the hit. In July, B-Love dropped a song called If You Know, You Know, where he dissed Dthanggz back, and the song took off and went on to get millions of views.
Fun fact about B-Love. Being that we from the same hood, so my god brother Bubba actually went to prison for B-Love, I guess you could say defending B-Love's honor. I'm going to have him on this channel eventually to tell the story himself, but basically, B-Love was having issues with some guy. Not saying that B-Love was like pussy or like hiding from the dude or like was scared or... But you know how it is in the hood. You see your man might have issues with somebody, so you'll jump out the water for him. A similar situation like that, but basically my god brother basically stripped the nigga down naked. Who had issues with B-Love, stripped the nigga down. You know what I mean? Gun in his mouth, gun in his face, stripped him butt naked and like sent him running through the hood or some shit. Nigga ended up telling. After he got robbed too, because Bubba robbed him. Nigga ended up telling. Fun fact, you know, just regular shit that go on in the hood.
This was also the first Bronx drill song to use a sample. The use of samples in New York drill wasn't new, and YouTube producers had been making these types of beats for a while, but B-Love brought the sound to the Bronx and popularized it. Going into the summer, the music was heating up, but the violence was as well, and DOA would end up losing 2 members named J-Rip and Nazi, and the YGs also lost 2 members named Ty Swish and Rajeez. All of these names would be brought up and dissed, especially Ra, and one of the main rappers dissing him would be K Flock. Going into August, K Flock was the hottest rapper in the Bronx, and he only had one solo song. He had gotten signed in July and was ready to start his solo act. In August, he dropped Is You Ready, and the song went crazy. He dissed his cousin Dthanggz, saying he would do him like Ice did Sonny, a paid in full reference that was K saying he could get him off. He also dissed Nesty Flocks, Rajeez, and E-Dot Baby. The track was fire and it took off, going viral, gaining millions of views. He followed this track up with another one called Being Honest, which was a heartfelt song about what K had been going through in the streets, losing close friends. And the song was also very popular with fans. This same month, CJ Goon, Shy K, and 30 teamed up on a track called How You Every Old Shot, taking shots at Dthanggz as well as DOA. The YG's response came in September when Dthanggz, Bando, and T-Dot dropped a song called Talk Facts, one of the most disrespectful tracks in music history. Dthanggz responded to what CJ had said on How You Every Old Shot, and him, Bando, and T-Dot basically dissed every hood in the Bronx. DOA, OGs, SB, OY, Highbridge, everybody. The song had a total of 44 disses, and at least 20 of them were dead ops. There are cases when a song only blows up because of how disrespectful it is, but the song was genuinely fire and followed the new trend of sampling popular records containing a melody from the song Somebody That I Used to Know. The level of disrespect combined with the fact that the song was genuinely good and had a catchy melody caused the record to go crazy viral, getting millions and millions of views and putting even more eyes on the Bronx drill movement. K Flock was already starting to get some mainstream attention, and Talk Facts blowing up gave a different perspective on the movement and created an interesting narrative with K and Dthanggz being blood cousins who were on opposite sides of street beef, who both ended up becoming rappers in the faces of their
which is absolutely insane. This is movie shit.
Respective gangs. YouTube channels like Hip Hop Daily started making videos about the beef going on in the Bronx, adding to the already growing spotlight. But unfortunately, Dthanggz wouldn't be able to capitalize much off of the new attention because in November, he was arrested for criminal possession of a firearm and would have to sit in jail. Meanwhile, K Flock was continuing his rise. In October, he was featured on a Lil TJ record alongside 5-Year-Old Foreign, giving him even more mainstream attention. Then in November, he dropped his debut project, the DOA tape. Everything was going up for him. Then on November 24th, New York City police put up a wanted poster with K-Flock's picture saying he was wanted for murder. And in January, he turned himself in. It was revealed that the whole thing was captured on camera. And the tapes revealed that K-Flock had been walking through his ops hood when he passed a barbershop. An OY member named Oscar left the shop, followed him, and confronted him. K backed out and upped it on him, taking his life. The whole situation was a crazy turn of events. In the prior months, he had been blowing up at a crazy rate, with many projecting his career to take off at the same trajectory as Pop Smoke. But he had blown it and was now looking at 20 plus years behind bars. With K-Flock and Dthanggz behind bars...
That's fucking crazy. And unfortunate, you know. Me being somebody who was involved in some of the similar things that these young guys is involved in now, I kind of got off lucky. Because before the people in my age group really started seriously getting into it, I ended up going to jail and I went to prison. But it was already starting off. Like, dudes was already starting to, you know, really get active. You know what I mean? Without saying too much. I ended up going to jail, and then by the time I came home, you know, shit was on and cracking. Shit was on and cracking, you know what I mean? In the home of the OGs. And then when I was, you know what I'm saying, 19, 20, the feds came and they started snatching niggas up. And now here I am, you know, 10 to 12 years later. I got homies who've been locked up since 2011, 2012. Then they waited for some niggas to come home and then locked them back up for shit that they wanted to get them for, but they was already locked up for other shit. You know what I mean? Stuff like, you know, like my nigga Taj and Boski and a couple other dudes. And here they go, you know, they watched us or heard about stories of what was going on, and they end up taking on the same characteristics, even started doing more wild shit. It's a sad situation.
It looked like the Bronx might suffer the same fate in 22 that Brooklyn faced in 2020 with the loss of Pop Smoke. But luckily, smaller Bronx drill rappers ended up capitalizing on the opportunity and keeping the movement alive. Lee Drilly had only started in February of 2021, but by August of that year, he was already preparing to go on a crazy run. In September, he had dropped a song called Deadly with E-Woo and Say Drilly that was just as disrespectful as Talk Facts, and had continued to make a name for himself off his skill, his unique style, and his commitment to dissing his ops on basically every song. In fall of 2021, while Lee Drilly had been heating up, Shy K had taken a step back from music, but around the end of December, he returned with Force FK. 2 songs combined into one, and both were extremely disrespectful, with him taking shots at DOA and the YGs. The video took off quickly, gaining 1 million views in a short period of time. Similarly to Lee Drilly, UGs, who had also just started rapping.
The only thing with this drill stuff is that I feel like none of them will take it as far as Pop Smoke did, because Pop Smoke understood that it's deeper than disses. That's why on his album, Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon, it wasn't really like no like dissing ops. He was making records. You know, he was making club records. He was experimenting with a couple new sounds. He was rapping and harmonizing over beats that wasn't drill. He had that crossover star appeal. And unfortunately, with the rest of these guys, they haven't shown that they could take it further than just dissing your ops or over a fire drill beat with a cool like sample. Because once you get into the music industry and you're expected to really sell records and appeal to as much people as possible, there's a niche fan group of younger kids who don't necessarily buy albums who are gonna like these records. You know, they're gonna be all into it. But these are mostly not records that are gonna be able to be played on the radio. These are mostly records that won't be able to tear the roof off at festivals like a Coachella or Rolling Loud. So it's kind of like there's an expiration date. You know, it's like you come in, get some money, and it's like in the middle of this, you in the streets. So you run the risk of being gunned down or sent to jail before you can even begin to reach your potential. Like, the two biggest stars from opposing sides, both in jail right now. Both in jail right now.
2021 had been rising quickly throughout the year of heavy dissing. In October, he had dropped a song called Dthanggz, continuing his habit of being extremely disrespectful and dissing as many people as possible, as well as continuing to perfect his new Batman voice. The song went viral, and he followed this up with We Been Ready, a response to K-Flock's song Is You Ready, on the same beat. Then, on Christmas, one day after Shahi K had dropped Force FK, he dropped a song called Face of the Bronx. Shahi K didn't like him claiming this title, and 2 weeks later, he dropped a song called Face of the What, where he said that USG was not the face of the Bronx. The song went crazy, and to this day, it's the most viewed video on his channel at a count of 7.5 million. Starting 2022 out with the song blowing up and K and Dthanggz gone, Shahi K was the biggest rapper in the Bronx, and him and USG's continued to go back and forth, making their music as disrespectful as possible. But Shahi K was outshining everybody and hitting 1 million+ views regularly while he was still independent. With the explosion of K-Flock and rappers like Dthanggz and Shahi K all getting millions of views, the Bronx drill scene had more attention than ever, and one of the people watching was the mayor of New York's son. Eric Adams, who was the mayor of New York, had never heard of drill until his son sent him some videos. Looking at the songs from a neutral point of view, the music was clearly bad for the city. You had gang members pouring gas on already hot fire with threats of violence as well as taunts of what they had already done, and Eric Adams felt he had to do something about it. So he had a conference to let the people know that he was going to try to reach out to some of the social media companies to try to get them to remove some of the video.
Okay, first off, I want to say that Eric Adams is full of shit. Full of shit. Just a big pamper of diarrhea shit, okay? If we knew that the government were into the business of preserving young kids' lives, especially in the inner cities, hip-hop would have been extinguished when NWA came out. That's cat. This was all just to bring attention to him, make himself look good, like hey, look, I'm the new mayor. Look what I want to do for the city. As you see, nothing happened. He met up with a bunch of these niggas. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. You need these drillers to be out. You need people to die. You need shootings to happen. So once it's voting season again, you then can get the DA involved and the police task force involved and try to snatch a lot of these little niggas up. That's the truth about it. But hey, you know, he's a politician. He's a politician. And how do you spell politician? Liar.
The news went everywhere that Eric Adams was trying to ban drill, and fans started panicking, and the rappers weren't too happy to see that they might be canceled.
Listen, Eric, leave me the alone. I'm rapping, I'm getting money, I ain't doing that wrong.
Luckily for them, Eric Adams didn't actually end up doing anything about the situation. And he would end up being the least of DOA's worries.
He had a
because
photo
without
op.
K-Flock, his homies were lost. Dougie B and Nazi BK were barely putting out music, and to make matters worse, they even ended up falling out and beefing. But they would later be seen on the stage together, leading many to believe they squashed it. B-Love was doing his thing, working with people like G Herbo and A Boogie, and he wasn't as lit as when K was free, but he was making styles of music outside of drill, and it looked like he was on pace to make a career that would last. So things were looking bad for DOA and good for the OGs, but for the YGs and the Drillies, things ended up going horribly. In April, Lee Drilly and 19 other Drilly members would catch a huge indictment, tying them to all sorts of crimes going as far back as 2018. Then in May, Dthanggz and 22 other YG's members from the RPT projects were named in a huge conspiracy indictment, and it became clear that Dthanggz, who had already been sitting in Rikers on his gun case, would not be going anywhere anytime soon. UG's wasn't included in this indictment and continued to put on for the gang, but over the course of the year, he would end up beefing with the Drillies repeatedly, first over a song he did with one of their ops, and then over a messy breakup with the girl who was the sister of a Drilly member. And things would end up getting to the point where UG's declared that he was Drilly K. Over in Harlem on the OY side, E.Baby was staying consistent, and Sugar Hill King was starting to take off, doing numbers on songs like Flock at the Flockas, Can't Wait. And alongside him, OY Quan was also starting to do his thing. As a whole, the Bronx drill movement had motion, but all the rappers behind bars and internal beefs had killed a lot of its momentum. But a new star would still end up emerging, and he would catch the world's attention in a tragic way. In July of 2022, an OY member called Nadi Osama was stabbed in an altercation on the subway and ended up losing his life at the young age of 14. Nadi and his brother Didi Osama had just recently started rapping earlier that year, and the large amount of publicity around his death brought a lot of new listeners to Didi. He capitalized on his new attention and began dropping consistently. As a result, his music took off at an extreme pace. He started gaining millions and millions of views, and his biggest song, 40s and 9s, went crazy, hitting 7 million views in a couple of months. In August, he passed every other rapper in the Bronx and Harlem in terms of searches and became the face of the movement at the young age of 15. His explosion onto the scene even caught the attention of major labels, and in September, Didi ended up signing with Alamo. Alongside Didi, his friend and fellow OY member Sugar Hill D-Dot, who's a year younger than him, was also starting to see his career take off along.
I don't know about him signing that deal. He mad young, yo. They be jerking niggas, man. Scary, man. Scary, man. If they in his pockets, it's fucked up.
Didi doing hundreds of thousands of views on basically all of his songs. But everybody wasn't a fan of Didi and the OYs. They had problems with several groups, and one of these groups was called 41. In October, this group made an extremely disrespectful song along with a dance to Mock Nadi, and it ended up going viral, shocking the entire internet. The dance part was new, but the unfortunate trend of dissing the dead, no matter their age, had already been set, so the situation didn't surprise anybody familiar with the scene. And the situation even ended up benefiting Didi Osama, bringing him more attention and adding to his growing fame. This brings us to the present day. K-Flock, Dthanggz, and Lee Drilly are still behind bars. B-Love and Shaheed K are still big and doing solid numbers. And Didi Osama has jumped all the way to the front of the movement.
All right, we can stop here, man. My final thoughts on this video is, I think it's great that these young guys found a way to express themselves artistically and be able to make a lot of money and be able to take care of themselves, and their family members, their moms. But it's also unfortunate that they're all profiting off of sharing trauma and profiting off their own pain and despair and teenage angst, if you will. It's just a real unfortunate situation because the formula that it took to be successful as a drill rapper is also the formula where you're given all the resources to destroy yourself. That's the unfortunate thing about it, With most of the most popular rappers from this genre are looking at a significant amount of time. And more tragic than that, You got K-Flock and Dthanggz, relatives by blood, gene lineage, DNA, you know, going at it with each other, even in jail, dissing each other. If they could have just stayed off the dissing, even if they stayed off the dissing, they were still in the streets doing their thing. So, you know, it's like jail was probably inevitable. But, you know, that just could have been something totally different, you know. But, hey, y'all let me know what y'all think. Shout out to New School Stories. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We out.